Naruto, Unlocking Genius with 10 Skill Bars. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 11. My ninjutsu can be upgraded infinitely. Nature Transformation? Put water style on the skill bar, and you can directly obtain the nature transformation of the water attribute. Doesn't that mean? Hang other 5 escape ninjutsu on the skill bar by yourself, and you can basically master the corresponding nature transformation in minutes. And the previous question is how to learn these ninjutsu and transform them into skills. However, now that Daxian has the ability to analyze, it is not a problem at all, okay? Shiyu laughed involuntarily. But he quickly withdrew his smile. The magical effect of the skill bar is not only that, it is just that you can get 5 escapes, it's nothing. The really powerful ones should be Yin Dun and Yang Dun. Mastering the Yin Yang escape technique plus 5 escapes is just the beginning. The real scary thing about the skill bar is that you can constantly run your skills, so that you can keep getting stronger and stronger every moment. But the problem now is that the chakra refining technique works to increase chakra. Physical exercise is to enhance physical fitness. And ninjutsu running seems to be able to increase the power of ninjutsu. Then, can the power of water style also be increased? Shiyu can't wait to try it now. But obviously not at home, it is still necessary to find a suitable place for ninjutsu release. The artificial lake in Konoha Park is a good place. The sun is scorching now, and there is no shade around the artificial lake. There should be no one. It is a good place to practice water style by yourself. Straight out of the door, Shiyu rushed towards the park lake. Physical feeling is a little stronger, it's completely like endless energy. A skill bar that runs all the time is just awesome. When I came to the park lake, there was no one around. The weather in this ghost is too hot. Although it is cool near the water, it is the water that is cool, not the people. The floor tiles that are not even a shaded place are hot to the feet. Who will stay here? Shiyu stood by the lake, let out a sigh of relief. In order to master this ninjutsu before, he didn't know how much effort he spent. There is also a lot of time to practice. But it can barely spit out a stream of water about the height of a person, and the impact force can only push others back a few meters. In terms of power, it's rubbish at all. It is also a sea-level ninjutsu. It took Shiyu with ordinary talent 3 years to fully master the water chaos, which can only push people back a few meters. As for the genius Sasuke, he spit out a huge fireball with ease. Enough to instantly burn the enemy into a ball of coke. This is the talent gap. Even ninjutsu of the same level has different powers in the hands of different people. But Shiyu is not concerned about this, and this means that the power of ninjutsu is not determined by the level. Hang up the water style, so far, it has been run no less than 60 or 70 times. I don't know if the power of the current water chaos has increased. Although the previous clone technique has proved that the power of ninjutsu will increase. But water style is different from clone technique. Clone technique is a non-attribute ninjutsu, while water style is an escape technique. In case there is any difference between the two. Shiyu raised his hand to make a seal. It really is a different feeling, Shiyu can clearly feel it just in the seal state. The sealing time has been cut in half. Shiyu's hand speed is not bad. It took about 3 seconds to perform this technique in Jian before. Now, in less than 1.5 seconds, the seal has been completed. This printing speed can basically barely reach the point where it can be used at any time in battle. Water style, water chaos, Shiyu took a deep breath, and then spit out the chakra that had gathered in his throat for a moment. Boom! Suddenly, the roar of the water flowing through it sounded, Shiyu was stunned. Compared with the current of one person's height before, it is now more than 10 times larger. The direct diffusion formed a water flow 6 to 7 meters wide that could stretch for dozens of meters and directly reach the center of the lake. And the flow rate has accelerated a lot. This and the previous Mizurambo technique are exactly like 2 ninjutsu. But the appearance is still the same, but the power cannot be compared at all. The sound of water falling into the lake sounded. A lot of water was splashed, and at the same time, there was a splashing sound. The falling drops of water landed on Shiyu's body, and Shiyu got wet almost instantly. Water was dripping from her hair, but Shiyu wasn't in the mood to care if she got wet. Instead, he stared at the violently turbulent lake. The power of ninjutsu has really improved. Of course, the increase in the power of water style may be partly due to the mastery of nature transformation. Shiyu itself has chakra of water attribute, mastering nature transformation makes ninjutsu stronger, and the relationship among them. It's as if you have both hands and feet, but if you want to dance, you may not be able to dance well, and nature transformation is like a dance teacher teaching you dance skills. Mastering the ninjutsu performed by nature transformation and not mastering it are completely different things. But this is not only because of mastering nature transformation, but also because of the skill column. Water style keeps running, allowing Shiyu to gain more experience, and the power of water style becomes stronger. Maybe even water style's nature transformation is still being enhanced. Nature transformation, Shiyu does not think it is a fixed state, and the state that each person can achieve is different. The reason why there is no system prompt now, it's just that after learning this skill, Daxian should have no way to continue to analyze it for Shiyu because the skill is damaged. Shiyu couldn't hold back the smile on his face when he lowered his head. Judging from the previous situation of hanging other skills, the longer the hanging time, the stronger the power of ninjutsu. Although it is getting stronger little by little, if it keeps hanging like this, the problem of chakra consumption is not considered. Then Shiyu can even directly turn into a tsunami-level wave impact with a sip of sea-level water style. So that in the end, maybe a water style can flood most of the ninja world. As long as there is enough time, Shiyu believes that it is absolutely possible to achieve such an effect. The skill bar can continuously enhance the power of ninjutsu, infinite enhancement, which means that my ninjutsu can be upgraded infinitely. Even if it is a low-level ninjutsu, it can also explode with the power of an S-level ninjutsu. This is the real ninja romance. Episode 12, Perfect Chakra Refining Technique. The skill bar has brought too many surprises to Shiyu, it's almost like being omnipotent. Detecting that the host has completed a skill release beyond the fixed skill quality, whether to update the skill status, it is natural that the water style, water chaos that I just released surpassed the quality of the previous water style. The current Shiyu and the previous Shiyu are not the same person at all. In just one day, earth-shaking changes have taken place. Although I am very happy that ninjutsu can be upgraded infinitely, and its power continues to increase. But there is also a problem. Shiyu looked helpless. The release of water style just now consumed more than half of my chakra. Although the power is strong, it seems that there is no way to let Shiyu release it continuously. Of course, if you deliberately control chakra, it is possible to reduce the power. But in this way, the effect of hanging water style is not so great. Even hanging ninjutsu makes ninjutsu too powerful, consumes too much chakra, and I can't even use it myself, which makes people speechless. Shiyu glanced at the wet clothes on his body. The core thing of a ninja is chakra. If you have enough chakra, why worry about this kind of problem? Forget it, let's restore the previous passive skill bar configuration. Passive skill 1 to 6, Chakra Refining Technique. Passive skill 7, School Level Physical Skills. Although I don't catch a cold when I'm soaked, it's very uncomfortable. Shiyu was about to go home and change into clean clothes. There is still half a day before it is time to go to bed at night. This period of time can be used to update the skill status of the Chakra Refining Technique. The current state of Chakra Refining Technique has been updated once, but what if Shiyu can do better? Then the chakra refined in the passive skill column will be more, and the amount of chakra will grow faster. A low-level water-style ninjutsu, the power of which can be exploded after hanging for more than 10 minutes. You can instantly evacuate most of your chakra. This kind of consumption is simply not something the current Shiyu can afford. Therefore, increasing the amount of chakra is the primary task. Go home. Shiyu put on new clothes. Shiyu has never been willing to wear this new outfit. A black long-sleeved jacket with silver-white chains on the cuffs and chest pockets. The style is very non-mainstream, but I have to say that in the Hokage world, such a dress is nothing. Instead, it made Shiyu feel very trendy, with his already handsome face. Putting on this dress, there are white short sleeves and black casual trousers on the lower body. A head of black hair drooped casually, half covering his eyes. All of a sudden, a melancholy and cold breath appeared. Shiyu seemed to be a completely different person. It was too ostentatious that Shiyu didn't dress up like this before. It's better not to be so eye-catching for mediocre him. But what if Shiyu is confident and attractive now? Instead, what Shiyu needs is attention. Putting on this body, Shiyu went back to the room again, sat down cross-legged and started chakra refining. Dedicate yourself to chakra refining. This time Shiyu did not pursue speed, but perfection. Under normal circumstances, a chakra refinement can be completed in about 10 minutes. Shiyu's talent is relatively poor, and it takes 15 to 20 minutes to complete one time. But this time Shiyu only completed one chakra refinement for an hour. Slow work and meticulous work, as expected after Shiyu finished refining the chakra. Not only can I feel the chakra refined this time, but it is even more powerful than the chakra refined before. Detecting that the host has completed a skill release beyond the fixed skill quality, skill status is being updated. The chakra refining effect this time is equivalent to twice as much as before. After the skill status is updated, it means that every 5 minutes Shiyu can get twice as much chakra as before. At the same time, chakra's power is also stronger. Continue. It's just that Shiyu won't be satisfied. For the rest of the day, the status of the chakra refining technique must be updated at least 3 times. To bring chakra distillation to ultimate perfection. Only in this way can chakra grow faster. The waves of chakra surged again in Shiyu's room. But this time Shiyu has increased speed while pursuing quality. However, after 40 minutes, Shiyu opened his eyes and successfully completed a refinement. But the skill status is not updated. Not every time you can do better than before. However, Shiyu was not discouraged, and continued to start the third chakra refining after a 10-minute rest. This time Shiyu was more focused and attentive. The afternoon passed quickly. When Shiyu successfully completes 3 status updates. The time has come to 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. It's finally completed. The current chakra refining technique should be in the most perfect state for me now. Each refinement can achieve 5 times the previous effect. Every 5 minutes, 6 strands of chakra are extracted each time, which is equivalent to the previous 30 extractions. Shiyu fell asleep on the bed after speaking. Refining chakra does not consume Shiyu's spiritual power, but doing things with concentration also consumes spiritual power. However, Shiyu fell asleep, but the passive skills are still active. Passive skills 1 to 6 complete a run. Passive skills 1 to 6 complete a run. Passive skills 1 to 6 complete a run. The next morning, when the sun rose, it fell on Shiyu's bed through the window, shining into Shiyu's eyes. The dazzling light made Shiyu feel uncomfortable even with his eyes closed. After opening his eyes and waking up, Shiyu rubbed his eyes. Looking around, and calling out the passive skill bar to have a look again, Shiyu lay down again in the right direction. Then I got up and washed my face. Shiyu begins to feel his own chakra. No idea how much chakra was added in one night. However, when Shiyu felt the chakra in his body suddenly doubled, he was completely dumbfounded. That much chakra has been added in one night. If you follow the original chakra refining technique, you will definitely not be able to achieve this effect. The main reason is that Shiyu has updated the skill status of the refining technique many times. Now it's different for 5 times at a time. The painstaking efforts to update the skill status yesterday were not in vain. With this growth rate, now my chakra volume has completely exceeded Genin's level. At least it's at Chunin's level. The harvest in one night is more than the past 6 years of penance. This is the power of the skill bar. Episode 13, The Enhanced Effect of Sword Skills. Now my chakra volume has reached the level of Chunin. Compared to ordinary genin, my amount of chakra is already 6 or 7 times theirs. This kind of chakra is in the ninja school. Among the current students, there is probably no one other than Naruto who has more chakra than Shiyu. It is even placed among the ninjas who are already genin, except for those genin who have not been promoted to chunin for more than 10 years. The amount of other genin chakra will definitely not be more than Shiyu. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Shiyu, are you up yet? There was a voice outside the door. Shiyu was very familiar with this voice. Isn't it Moonlight Gale? Running to find myself early in the morning? Opening the door, Shiyu looked at Moonlight Gale standing outside, with dark circles under his eyes and a pale face. Although he also looked like this yesterday, why does he feel like he is a little weaker today? Brother Haifeng, did you have anything to do with me early in the morning? Hearing this, Yuiguan Gaifeng smiled helplessly. Didn't you just say, just call me brother? Forget it, you're used to calling it that way. As he spoke, he took out the ninjutsu scroll in his arms and threw it to Shiyu. This is the illusion you wanted yesterday. I found one for you, but it's just the simplest basic visual illusion. It's okay against some ordinary people, but basically useless against ninjas. Shiyu scratched his head in embarrassment. The other party helped him find the illusion scroll, but he even changed his name back to others. Have you had breakfast yet? Hearing this, Shiyu shook his head. Get dressed and follow me. Go to the street and I'll treat you to breakfast. Okay. Immediately. After putting away the illusion scroll given by Haifeng, Shiyu went back to the room and quickly washed and tidied up. Gale at the door saw that Shiyu's dress today was different from before, which made him look even more imposing. And it feels like a different person. The current Shiyu is radiant and very eye-catching. This outfit makes you look much more handsome. You should have dressed like this before. Talking about Haifeng, he smiled. I don't know why Shiyu suddenly changed his dressing style, but at this age and yesterday, Shiyu said that he had an appointment with a classmate. Probably to attract the attention of female classmates. It's nice to be young. By the way, bring your wooden sword. Hearing this, Shiyu casually took the wooden sword at the door. Brother Haifeng, are we going to train swordsmanship again? Of course. Haifeng looked at Shiyu very seriously. Your talent in swordsmanship must not be wasted, so I will supervise your swordsmanship training. However, I have a task this afternoon, and I have nothing to do in the morning. I will practice swordsmanship with you. Forehead. Shiyu originally had his own plans. Rather than practicing swordsmanship, Shiyu wants to immediately experience the effect of putting illusion on the skill bar. But now it seems that it is impossible in the morning, so we have to wait until the afternoon to try again. I ate a very nutritious breakfast casually on the street. This time I didn't go to Konoha's training ground. The wind brought Shiyu to the outskirts of Konoha village, a secluded forest. Okay, let's practice swordsmanship here. Said Gaifeng leaned against a big tree, looked at Shiyu. You start with basic swordsmanship. Consolidation is needed every day, starting from the foundation, and building a taller building after laying a good foundation. This sentence is quite good. Shiyu shrugged and walked to the middle of the clearing with his wooden sword. Gently shook his fist. Feeling the power, Shiyu had a smile on his face. In one night, Shiyu not only increased the amount of chakra, but also strengthened his physique a lot. Although the progress is not as exaggerated as the amount of chakra, it is still amazing. The strength now is more than twice that of before. And the physical skills hanging on the skill bar will not only increase Shiyu's strength, but also comprehensively increase his physique, speed, reaction, etc. In other words, Shiyu's speed and physique have also been strengthened to twice the original. This is only because of one physical skill. If 7 physical skills are used, it may not be a problem to really rely on physical fitness to become a god. Correct. What if Konoha Ryu swordsmanship was used? Shiyu glanced at Gale beside him. Although there are some differences between swordsmanship and physical skills, they are both essentially close combat abilities. Physical skills can enhance one's physique, so sword skills should also be able to do it. Try changing skills. Skills installed successfully. Passive skill 7, Konoha-style swordsmanship. Shiyu exhaled lightly, and began to practice basic swordsmanship according to Moonlight Galewind's request. As soon as he shot, Moonlight Gale nodded in satisfaction. Basic swordsmanship is still very solid, even he can't tell what's wrong. A set of basic swordsmanship exercises ended in less than 30 seconds. Passive skill 7 completes a run. Does it take 30 seconds or so to complete a run? This is slightly longer than the running time of physical arts. But Shiyu suddenly felt that his fingers seemed to be much more flexible, and he suddenly took the sword. A sword pierced out. The speed has increased by about a third. The wooden sword pierced through the air, making a faint sound of breaking wind. Moonlight Gale, who looked a little sleepy while sitting under the tree, suddenly regained his energy. He stared at Shiyu. The speed of the sword is faster and more accurate than yesterday. I have already reached the almost perfect Konoha-style swordsmanship. Can I still make a breakthrough in a short period of time? This is no longer a swordsman genius, this is a swordsman ghost. Swish, swish, swish. Shiyu performed the Konoha Ryu swordsmanship, not only faster, but also a lot more responsive. 10 forms of Konoha-style swordsmanship, 1 form per second, and it takes 10 seconds to complete. It took Sasuke 7 seconds to complete the Konoha Ryu sword art. After putting away the wooden sword, Shiyu seemed to understand the role of hanging sword skills on the skill bar. If it is said that Taishu is all-round self-strengthening. So although swordsmanship also belongs to the category of physical arts, it is more targeted. Swordsmanship mainly increases reaction power, speed, and swordsmanship itself. And the enhancement of swordsmanship itself is not power, but an enhancement of experience and skills, and most importantly, the speed, accuracy, and strength of swordsmanship. Of course, Shiyu's physique should also be increased, but the effect of the increase is not as good as physical skills. Each has its own advantages. Compared with physical skills, swordsmanship is on the skill bar, which can increase my combat effectiveness at this stage faster. The only martial art in the world is fast. Episode 14, Simple Swordsmanship Contest. Detecting that the host has completed a skill release beyond the fixed skill quality, whether to update the skill status. The skill status of Konoha-style swordsmanship can be updated. Of course it will be updated. After the update, the effect is stronger, and every time you run it, you can greatly increase your speed and response. Renew, Shiyu said silently in his heart. At the same time, he is also preparing to continue practicing Konoha Ryu swordsmanship. Anyway, this morning, he is expected to be monitored by Moonlight Gale to practice swordsmanship. Simply try to update the Konoha Ryu swordsmanship to the most perfect state. However, when Shiyu wanted to start going on again, Moonlight Gale suddenly stopped Shiyu. Shiyu, wait a moment, the effect of practicing alone is limited. Why don't I practice with you? Practice with me? Shiyu glanced at Haifeng, did he want to fight himself? Just watching Shiyu practice swordsmanship is indeed perfect, which makes Haifeng feel ashamed. But what would it be like to actually fight? You must know that there is still a difference between practice and real combat. Brother Haifeng, you are also a jonin after all, I haven't graduated yet, isn't it bullying if you accompany me to practice swordsmanship? Although Shiyu has changed a lot now, he is also blindly arrogant and thinks that he can beat Moonlight Gale. Don't worry. It's just practice, we don't use chakra with each other, and we don't use any ninjutsu, just swordplay. Oh. This is interesting. This means that if only swordsmanship is used to compete, then Shiyu is quite interested. The skill bar has brought so many improvements, but Shiyu is also a little curious about what his real combat power looks like. Shiyu nodded, then you can give it a try. Bring it on. The two stood facing each other at a distance of 10 meters. At the same time, he raised the wooden sword in the posture of Konoha swordsmanship. And now, the third generation, who just came to the Hokage building, was thinking about the kid called Shiyu that Moonlight Shiyu said yesterday, and was going to take a look. This is said by Moonlight Shiyu to be a genius boy comparable to Konoha's White Fang. I was too busy yesterday and haven't seen what this kid looks like. Taking out his peeping crystal ball, third generation put his hands on the crystal ball. The telescope technique third generation has already been perfected, and has even reached the point where it can be released at will without the need for seals. As long as he was within Konoha range, he could look wherever he wanted. When third generation observed Shiyu with the telescope technique, he happened to see him and Haifeng posing for a fight. Oh? Is Haifeng practicing with this brat? Third generation smiled. Then he looked at Shiyu, but the moment he saw Shiyu, third generation was really surprised. What a handsome brat. The genes of the Moonlight clan are pretty good. Both Yuiguan Haifeng and Yuiguan Shiyu can be said to be proper handsome guys, while Shiyu has more potential than Haifeng. After looking at the appearance, third generation noticed something more interesting. Both Shiyu and Haifeng are using Konoha swordsmanship at the moment. But Shiyu's posture was a little different. Compared with Yuiguan Galefang's holding the sword with both hands, Shiyu chose to hold the sword with one hand, and put the other hand on the left rear side of his body. Just one change made third generation feel different. The flaw in Konoha swordplay is where Shiyu's left hand is placed. But if he made a slight change like Shiyu's, the flaws would be made up immediately. This kid really only learned Konoha swordsmanship yesterday? Moonlight Gale also noticed Shiyu's change, but he didn't have the same vision as third generation. He just felt that Shiyu held a knife with one hand and looked down on him. Originally wanted to wait for Shiyu's attack, but now Haifeng chooses to attack directly. Step forward, although not using chakra, nor ninjutsu. But Jonin's physique is not a bit stronger than Genin's, and the speed of the blast is very fast. Jumping directly in front of Shiyu, the wooden knife in his hand slashed towards Shiyu's neck from the lower left. This is the third form of Konoha swordsmanship. Shiyu discovered the flaw in the opponent's Konoha swordsmanship the moment the opponent made a move. He took half a step back slightly, tilted his body slightly to the right, and stabbed out with a sword. Shiyu didn't use Konoha swordsmanship, but simply stabbed straight. At this moment, the pipe that third generation was holding in his mouth suddenly dropped. Because in the next second, the Konoha-style swordsmanship performed by Moonlight Gale was forced to stop, and now the only choice left for him was to retreat or change his moves. Haifeng directly used the fifth form, and while the wooden knife was blocked, the blade turned its head and cut towards Shiyu's waist. At this moment, Shiyu raised his left hand suddenly, pressing down on the blade. Changing from a stab to a vertical block, the wooden swords collided with each other, and there was a clear sound of impact. It should have been Gale Wind who had won the fight. After all, the power of Gale is definitely stronger than Shiyu now. But Shiyu holding the knife with one hand and pressing the back of the knife with one hand to exert force is better than Haifeng holding the knife with both hands. It directly blocked the knife. And at the moment of blocking, Shiyu's movement happened to be the movement of performing the seventh form of Konoha swordsmanship. A knife slashed on Gale's wrist. Suddenly, the palm became weak due to the pain, and the wooden knife was dropped immediately. The flying wooden knife is still in the air. Haifeng was taken aback, and quickly prepared to step back to create a distance to avoid being attacked by Shiyu. But Shiyu seems to have been ready for a long time. The 10th form of Konoha swordsmanship, a sudden acceleration, the moment Shiyu and Haifeng intertwined. Shiyu's wooden sword was already at Gale's throat. Beep. The wooden sword fell to the ground. At the same time in Hokage's office, third generation's pipe fell on the desk. Third generation stared blankly at the scene in front of him. In the swordsmanship contest, Shiyu used 3 moves, and only used 3 moves to defeat Konoha's present Jonin Chunin, Moonlight Gale, with superb swordsmanship. And it is still using the Konoha Ryu sword technique that is the most grandmaster of Haifeng. Is this really a kid who hasn't even graduated from ninja school? Sarutobi stared at Shiyu in the picture dumbfounded, and pointed upwards at the wooden sword at Haifeng's throat. Shiyu pressed the end of the hilt with his left hand, and he could use his right hand as a fulcrum to lift Gale upwards at any time. At the same time, if this was a real sword, Gale might end up being pierced through his throat by a sword. Take a deep breath. Third generation slowly picked up the pipe and put it on his mouth again. Looking at Shiyu in the picture, this brat is indeed a genius in swordsmanship. As long as you train a little bit, becoming the second White Fang is definitely not a problem. Episode 15. The Moonlight Clan also has blood successor limits. Shiyu's performance really surprised third generation. For a kid who hasn't graduated from ninja school to be able to do this is indeed a genius. In the future, Shiyu's chakra and ninjutsu will also grow. Well, it is safe to say that Jonin level combat power, even if he can't become as powerful as White Fang, he can grow into an elite Jonin without any problem. Thinking of this, third generation has already begun to have some ideas. Ninja school is about to graduate, you have to think carefully about class division. Third generation smiled thinking about it. At this time, someone knocked on the door, and third generation put away the crystal ball. He is Hokage who is busy every day. Moonlight Gale looked at Shiyu, and then at the wooden sword stuck to his throat. Couldn't help but swallowed his saliva. Although looking at Shiyu in front of him, you are doing very well, I didn't expect you to be able to comprehend swordsmanship to such an extent. Obviously, I only taught this kid Konoha Ryu swordsmanship yesterday. It's already surpassed me today. Didn't this kid go on a date with a classmate yesterday? No time to practice at all. In other words, after this kid learns it once, he can use it better than me? The more Moonlight Gale thought about it, the more incredible it became. This is no longer a question of genius. It's almost like being born with it. Monster. It's all taught by Brother Haifeng. Shiyu slowly put away the wooden sword. In fact, Shiyu himself was a little surprised that Moonlight Gale was solved so easily. Is it because my swordsmanship is too strong, or is this guy too good? Shiyu himself couldn't believe it. At this time, Gale went to the side and picked up the wooden sword that had fallen from the ground. Then he turned his head to look at Shiyu, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the current blast. He is a dignified Jonin of Konoha, and he was easily defeated by a school kid in swordsmanship. This also seems to be too weak. Thinking of this, the wind coughed a few times. Shiyu turned to look at him, and Gaifeng showed a gratified expression. Yes, I only used half of my strength just now, and you were able to defeat me easily. But don't be proud, continue to practice hard. If I use all my strength, you won't be so easy. Only used half the power? Really? Shiyu felt that Haifeng seemed a little guilty when he said this. Ahem. A real ninja fight is not as simple as a sword fight. If I use chakra, my speed will be even faster. With the Jonin technique at the same time, you will have no resistance at all. Gale suddenly showed a slightly smug smile. Do you know why I can be a special Jonin? I'm not only good at swordsmanship, but also I can use special penetration to hide my breath so that the enemy can't find it. Through the dungeon, combined with Konoha-style swordsmanship. The power possessed by the cooperation of the two is indeed not that simple. Shiyu himself could imagine a master swordsman who hides his figure, and can also hide his aura. Suddenly coming out from a certain corner, basically if there is not a huge gap in strength. Generally, it is difficult to get out of the whole body. Shiyu nodded. Suddenly thought of something. Turning his head to look at Moonlight Gale, through done? Is it blood successor's boundary? Hearing this, Yuiguan Galefeng nodded, that's right. Is this the blood succession limit of the Moonlight clan? Forehead. Faced with this problem, Yuiguan Galefeng didn't know how to explain it. If it is said to be the blood successor limit of the Moonlight clan, it doesn't seem to be considered. After all, he is the only one in the Moonlight clan who has this special ability for the time being. However, if it is not true, Tu Dun is indeed considered as blood successor limit and he is also a member of the Moonlight clan. Haifeng thought for a while, maybe it is. But now I am the only one in the Moonlight clan who can use this ability. Shiyu looked at Haifeng a little excitedly. He suddenly had a bold idea. If I use Daxian asterisk to analyze the limit of blood successor, can I directly grasp the limit of blood successor? Thinking of this, Shiyu began to look forward to it. The effect of Daxian is to analyze skills, and it can analyze any new skills. So what about blood succession limit? If he could even successfully analyze the blood succession limit, he would be soaring into the sky. Brother Haifeng, can you teach me through done? What if I also have the talent to use through done? Haifeng looked at Shiyu with a troubled expression on his face. The possibility of this is very small, but it doesn't matter if Shiyu tries it. At the same time, showing the power of translucency also made Shiyu not to underestimate his special jonin. Okay, alright. With Haifeng's consent, Shiyu breathed out lightly, then stared at Haifeng. Brother Haifeng, let's start. Two Dun's basic stealth ability can be activated at any time, but if it's just stealth, it's actually not a very strong ability. After all, a powerful ninja can determine your approximate position even through breath. It needs to cooperate with the ninjutsu of penetrating escape, so that the breath can also be hidden so that people can't perceive it at all. Let me teach you how to seal first. Then I will briefly teach you to try it out to see if you have the talent to escape. Although he is also from the Moonlight clan, Haifeng doesn't think there is a second clan member with the same talent as him. Absolutely not. Detect host is learning new skills. Daxian, activate. Analyzing, 1%, 2%, 3%. The analysis speed this time is completely different from before, with a 1% 100th 1% increase, and this growth rate seems to be telling Shiyu from the side. Analyzing the blood succession limit is not that simple. Alright. Now you understand. Haifeng gave a simple demonstration, but Shiyu took a look at his analysis progress. 32%. After Haifeng spoke once, Shiyu only resolved to 32%, and it has now stopped. Brother Haifeng, please, can you explain it 2 more times? I can't quite understand it. Seeing Shiyu begging himself, Haifeng also smiled. Although the talent of swordsmanship is outstanding, but in ninjutsu, Shiyu's talent does not seem to be very good. Okay, we still have time anyway. Moonlight Gale repeatedly told Shiyu how to use the transparency and various skills. After talking back and forth 4 or 5 times. Haifeng is a little impatient, so don't force yourself if you can't learn it. He didn't hold out hope at first. But Shiyu obviously didn't want to give up easily. But this kind of thing is not something you can get by insisting. Shiyu, you don't have to be discouraged if you don't have the talent to escape. Your unique swordsmanship talent is already very good. I can teach you stronger swordsmanship. Analysis completed. Episode 16, The Divine Skill That Men Dream Of. Congratulations to host for acquiring new skills, through escape, real. It's done. Although the speed of analysis was a bit full, Haifeng went back and forth here to demonstrate, explain, and teach himself for nearly an hour. But still successfully parsed. It seems that the blood successor boundary can also be analyzed successfully, but it just takes a long time. At the same time, blood successors like Tu Dun are not considered strong, and they still need an hour of analysis time. What if it is a stronger blood inheritance limit? Sharingan's blood successor, with style blood successor, and how long it will take for these blood successors to complete the analysis. Daxian, if this skill is complete, it doesn't take too much time. Whoa. Is it? If the skills are completely restored, how much faster will it be? Shiyu was looking forward to it. Shiyu, you don't have to be discouraged. The blood succession boundary is something that is innate, and secondly, it can be acquired through cultivation. If you are really interested in Through Dun, I can tell you how I developed this ability in the future. Maybe you can do it too. Speaking of this, Yuiguan Galefeng secretly added something in his heart. Although Shuiji boundary can also be cultivated the day after tomorrow, it is basically as difficult as reaching the sky, and it is completely impossible. In the history of the development of the ninja world, all blood successor limit families are basically upgraded because of some kind of upgrade, which led to the appearance of blood succession limit. And if you want to practice and develop the bleeding inheritance boundary by yourself, it is impossible for someone to do that kind of thing. But Brother Haifeng, I feel like I will. That's right. Transmitting dungeon is very special, but it's not a very strong blood inheritance boundary. Even if you don't master it, it won't affect your swordsmanship. Moonlight Galewind suddenly realized that there seemed to be something wrong. Looking at Shiyu, what did you just say? I said. I think I will. Meeting? Will it? Moonlight Gale was stunned for a moment, then smiled faintly. How can this be? Although Tu Dun is not a very strong blood successor limit, it is still considered a blood succession limit. At the beginning, I also wanted to prevent the enemy from finding me when I was performing a mission. This led to the accidental mastery of Through Dun. This is not the blood successor limit of the Moonlight clan. How could this brat, Shiyu, possibly master it? His smile clearly tells Shiyu that he doesn't believe it at all. And Shiyu didn't say too much, and directly and simply sealed the knot. The body began to become transparent. And when Shiyu completely disappeared in front of Haifeng, Yuiguan Haifeng's expression gradually changed from calm to shocked. How is it possible? You really learned how to escape? Shiyu slowly appeared, breaking the transparent state. Then he looked at his hands very excitedly. The feeling of using Through is really special. Well, I did learn it. Shiyu responded lightly, but Haifeng looked at Shiyu's calm look. He couldn't keep calm anymore. No. The gale that retreated again and again looked at Shiyu. Impossible. It doesn't make sense. How did he learn it? Although I have spent more than an hour painstakingly speaking, can this thing be learned in just one lecture? If this is the case, I am afraid that the ninjas of Shuuji Boundary will have classes every day. No. But watching Shiyu perform the penetration again, this time not only Shiyu's body disappeared, but he couldn't even feel his breath. This is a proper penetration effect. He really has completely mastered Tudun. Gai Feng scratched his head. Could it be Through? Is it really the blood successor limit of my Moonlight clan? If other clansmen know this news, they will go crazy and try their best to develop Tudun. If Tudun is not the blood successor limit of the Moonlight clan, how does this explain Shiyu's situation? Could it be that in the hour or so he talked about, he developed Through with his own efforts? There are two explanations. Haifeng feels that he is more willing to believe the former, and this is the blood succession limit of the Moonlight clan. If Shiyu could develop a blood succession limit by listening to it himself, that's too scary. Is it still human? Shiyu feels the power of penetration. Although it is the blood successor limit, what is the chakra attribute of the fusion? His chakra attribute is known to be water, and judging from his civilian talent, it is estimated that there is only one chakra attribute. How is it possible for a chakra attribute to develop hemorrhagic succession? I'm afraid this will be studied slowly later. At this moment, Haifeng looked at Shiyu, who reappeared, and immediately grabbed Shiyu's shoulders with both hands. Although I don't know why, you managed to master Tudun so smoothly. But with the blessing of Transcension and your sword skills, you will definitely become Konoha's elite jonin in the future. Shiyu, the future of the Moonlight clan depends on you. Rely on me? Shiyu smiled helplessly and nodded. Don't worry. Suddenly, Haifeng seemed to think of something, stood up and coughed a few times. Then he looked at Shiyu with a serious face, and his eyes suddenly became a little scary. His face was gloomy, and he looked like a villain. By the way, now that you have mastered the transmittal, I am here to give you a serious warning. Don't use this ability to peep, understand? Shiyu thought what this guy was going to say. It turned out to be this. Brother Haifeng, don't worry. I'm not such a nasty person. If I want to see a girl, I will pursue it openly, and then let her take the initiative to show it to me. Seeing Shiyu's upright gaze, Haifeng's face changed a bit. Don't you have any idea at all? This is through escape. A magical skill that men dream of. With it, you will never be found peeping at the women's bathhouse, and the graceful figure of any woman will be presented in front of your eyes. To escape is a man's magical skill? No, the focus now should not be this. Shiyu looked at Haifeng's sunken eye sockets and thick dark circles. With these warnings, Shiyu seemed to understand. Why does this guy look depressed all day long, this guy? Brother Haifeng, you look very imaginary, don't you often steal? Haifeng quickly covered Shiyu's mouth. Don't talk nonsense, I don't, how could I do such a thing? He muttered softly, I only watch it once in a while. Episode 17, the small development of magic skills is amazing, eh? Shiyu looked at Haifeng with contempt. I didn't expect Haifeng to do such a thing. Is it necessary to be so handsome? And if I remember well, this guy should have a girlfriend. Thinking of this, Shiyu smiled. Brother Haifeng, you seem to have a girlfriend. Hearing this, Haifeng was stunned for a moment. Ah. Yes, what's wrong? What's wrong with having a girlfriend at my age? If Brother Haifeng's girlfriend knows that you are peeping at the women's bathhouse. Hearing this, Gale burst into a cold sweat. Shiyu looked at Haifeng sinisterly. You don't want your girlfriend to know. So, hee. Hey. What do you want to do, boy? Haifeng took 2 steps back strategically, holding his chest with both hands, looking at Shiyu in horror. How can you be so good at such a young age? As long as Brother Haifeng teaches me the shadow clone technique, I think I may have heard it wrong just now. Seeing Shiyu rubbed his hands with a sinister look on his face. Haifeng breathed a sigh of relief. Just take a breath if it's not good. But it is too early for Shiyu to learn shadow clone technique. At least Haifeng thinks it's too early. Want to learn shadow clone? Wait until you graduate. Brother Haifeng, if you are like this, I will. I remembered, I still have tasks, I'm leaving first, you continue to practice, don't relax. Swish. The blast disappeared instantly. If you don't teach the shadow clone technique, you can teach a body flicker technique. However, Gaifeng didn't listen to Shiyu's words, and disappeared without a trace in an instant. Shiyu was helpless. Hey! Doesn't such a threat work? Of course, Shiyu will not really go to inform, after all, Haifeng has helped him a lot. It would be ungrateful to go to inform again. Never mind. There's always a chance. Both shadow clone and body flicker technique can be learned sooner or later. The problem now is still the amount of chakra, but now. Shiyu wanted to study the issue of two dun more carefully. Through dun can make himself invisible and even hide his breath. If Haifeng in the original book hadn't been killed by the plot, he would not have been discovered with his penetration. Even the breath is hidden, how could it be discovered? Not everyone has white eyes and can directly see the flow of chakra. And two dun's real nemesis should be only white eyes. Shiyu controlled chakra, raised his hand and watched the arm slowly disappear in front of him. This blood successor's ability is not weak, but it's a pity that he was restrained by Baiyan. No matter whether he is invisible or hiding his breath, Baiyan can see the flow of chakra. It is not too easy to see through the invisible, directly through this point. Although I don't necessarily need to fight with the Hyuga clan, but in case I do meet, wouldn't I be helpless? Shiyu looked at the other hand, the wooden sword that was also covered by two dun chakra, and disappeared before his eyes. Covered with chakra, even things that do not belong to themselves, can also be invisible. What about ninjutsu? If you add the Jonin technique through the escape, and use the effect of the escape to make the ninjutsu invisible, wouldn't it be impossible to defend against the attack? Thinking of this, Shiyu wanted to try a little. Find a good location, Shiyu is ready to release water style, water chaos. After all, this is the only escape technique he currently knows. In the process of releasing ninjutsu in Jian, chakra gathered in his throat, and the water flowed out in the next second. Deliberately controlling the power, the water flow is not too large. But in the process, Shiyu tried to integrate into the translucent chakra. Failed directly. Even water style stopped releasing. Chakra almost turned back and injured Shiyu. So close. After Shiyu stabilized chakra, he said with lingering fear. It seems that things like developing ninjutsu are not done casually. If you are not careful, you will kill yourself. Recalling the situation just now, the release of water style requires the nature transformation of the water attribute, but at the same time it wants to incorporate the effect of translucence. A transparent nature transformation is required. It is simply impossible to carry out two kinds of nature transformation at the same time. At least with Shiyu's control, it is impossible to do it at all. Chakra's rampage did not hurt Shiyu, which is considered light. Could it be that this penetration can only be used for the ability of invisibility? In this way, the effect of this blood inheritance is too little. It is best for chakra to only perform one nature transformation at a time. In this case, it can only be combined with non-attribute ninjutsu, such as clone technique. Techniques such as shadow clone. No attribute. Where is Rasengan? There was light in Shiyu's eyes. Rasengan with no attribute should be able to do it. But in a blink of an eye, Shiyu began to smile helplessly again. Rasengan doesn't talk about development issues, Rasengan's own voice is too loud. Wouldn't it be funny to combine it with transcendence? The main highlight of Two Dun is a surprise, the voice is exposed, how can it be a surprise? By surprise? Hidden weapon. Shiyu took out kunai from the ninja bag. The penetrating chakra immediately covered it, and sure enough, kunai disappeared in front of his eyes in the next second. However, Shiyu can still feel kunai being held in his hand. Yes. Since it doesn't work with ninjutsu, it can work with hidden weapons. The hidden weapon itself must be as unexpected as possible in order to be able to cause effective damage. Wouldn't it be just right to cooperate with Two Dun? An invisible hidden weapon, it is difficult for the enemy to hide. Unless it is a powerful elite ninja who can judge the approximate direction to avoid by relying on the sound of the hidden weapon breaking the wind. Ordinary Jonin may not have the ability to avoid transparent hidden weapons. He casually threw out the kunai wrapped in toten in his hand, and nailed it straight to the tree. It took 3 seconds for the hidden weapon to slowly appear. Shiyu had a smile on his face. It seems that if you want to develop this transparent hidden weapon move based on the penetration, you have to practice the skill of throwing the hidden weapon. Melee Konoha-style swordsmanship, medium and long range, can use water waves to attack, or interfere with the enemy. When unexpected, you can use the transparent hidden weapon to carry out a sneak attack. Not to mention ninjas of the same level, even if it is Chunin or even Jonin, it seems that Shiyu has the power to fight. Traveling and hidden weapons are indeed a good combination. If there is a shadow clone, combined with my own penetration, it will be really elusive, and the enemy will probably have a headache to death. Episode 18, Concealed Weapon Throwing Wrist Power Increases Soaringly. My hidden weapon throwing level is only average in the ninja school. Not to mention the level of ninjas. Shiyu frowned. It seemed that he had to set aside a skill bar a little bit, and put the hidden weapon throw on it for a while. There is no need to improve the hidden weapon throwing too much, it only needs to reach a certain level. In this way, the power of cooperating with the penetration will be stronger. Passive Skill 6, Hidden Weapon Throwing. Remove one of the chakra refining techniques and replace it with hidden weapon throwing. In this way, the skill column of 1 to 5 is still chakra refining, which ensures the growth of chakra. 6 and 7 are hidden weapon throwing and Konoha-style swordsmanship, respectively. Shiyu is also going to test how many kunai can be invisible at one time with his current level. However, the sound of the system sounded again. Passive Skill 6, Hidden Weapon Throwing. Complete a run. It only took a few seconds, and it was completed once. Nice. This speed. Staring at the big tree in the distance, Shiyu raised his hand and threw out 2 kunai. According to Shiyu's original level, it's pretty good that these 2 kunai can be nailed to the target range. However, this time, both kunai landed in the central area of the trunk. Can throw kunai to the target area, and they are all close to the crosshair. This is already a small progress. Passive Skill 6. Complete a run. Once in a few seconds, this speed is quite fast. However, the ability of hidden weapon throwing technique is not difficult to cultivate. It runs fast and works fine. 10 minutes. 10 minutes is neither too long nor too short, but Shiyu has clearly felt great progress. The moment the kunai came out of his hand, not only the kunai's speed was amazing. Even when it hit the tree trunk, it made an extremely crisp impact sound. Boom. Nearly half of the blade of Kwai pierced into the trunk. The kunai power of throwing has also increased a lot, more importantly now Shiyu is looking at the tree trunk. From top to bottom, 10 kunai are photographed vertically. The distance between each kunai is about 10 centimeters, and the error is not more than 1 or 2 centimeters. This is the enhancement of control, and at the same time, the enhancement of Kuwei's strength, and the accuracy has also improved rapidly. It's only been 10 minutes. If you continue to hang the hidden weapon throwing technique on the skill bar, it will take another hour, and I don't know how far it will grow. This speed of strengthening visible to the naked eye is simply unstoppable. There is no problem at all with a distance of 15 meters. So. Shiyu had a smile on his face. Increase the distance. He stepped back another 10 meters. It is now 25 meters away. Shiyu raised his hand and threw a shuriken directly. The shuriken in the air rotated rapidly, making a swishing sound of breaking the wind. Next second. Boom. Pierced directly into the trunk. Shiyu frowned, the distance is longer, and the accuracy is much worse. Looking at the shuriken that deviates from Shiyu's target position by about 5 centimeters, this deviation is fatal in battle. It seems that the hidden weapon throwing technique will have to continue for a while. Shiyu's requirements are not high, and he can accurately hit the target position within 30 meters. At the same time, the strength can't be too bad. Otherwise, it is just to scratch the opponent's skin lightly, then it will live up to the effect to escape. And Shiyu kept throwing hidden weapons. The main purpose of doing this is not to practice to speed up progress, but to refresh the state of the skill. The status refresh of hidden weapon throwing is much simpler than that of chakra refining. Within half an hour, Shiyu refreshed the status about 10 times. The boost from hidden weapon throwing gets bigger with each run. At the same time, Shiyu actually felt that his wrist strength had increased a lot. The enhancement of wrist strength is also very helpful for Shiyu's swordsmanship. After discovering this, for the next 3 hours, Shiyu practiced concealed weapon throwing. But after 3 hours of uninterrupted practice, Shiyu felt that his hand was about to be dislocated. The hidden weapon throwing technique has also refreshed the state more than 30 times. On average, the status is refreshed 10 times an hour. Now the effect of passive operation should be close to the limit of what Shiyu can do. Very tired, Shiyu finally sat down and planned to rest for a while. It's impossible to use only one skill without consumption. I should get 2 hidden weapon throwing skills, so my hands won't be so uncomfortable, Shiyu said. Suddenly, Shiyu stood up with a groan. Hanging 2 skills at the same time can achieve no consumption. Then I have 2 physical skills at the same time, doesn't it mean that in battle, my physical strength is unlimited? 2 body skills, plus 2 chakra, that is to say, it can be done, crazy back to mana, unlimited physical strength. Not to mention the crazy back to blue, just the thing of unlimited physical strength makes Shiyu a little crazy. When you master the fairy art, then you may become, with unlimited chakra and unlimited physical strength. In other words, at this stage, on the one hand, I want to increase chakra crazily, and at the same time, focus on improving my physical ability. Hang 2 physical skills into the skill bar, and you can directly become infinite physical strength. In this case, using physical attacks is naturally the best. And after mastering Jutsu, or after the amount of chakra is piled up, then you can transform into a ninja who combines ninjutsu and physical jutsu. Shiyu lay on the ground and couldn't help laughing. Afterwards, the concealed weapon throwing technique hung on the skill bar for a full 7 hours. The final effect far exceeded Shiyu's expectation. When coming home at night, Shiyu's concealed weapon throw has become quite pervert. Within the range of 10 meters to 15 meters, the thickness of the wooden material does not exceed 50 centimeters, and Shiyu's hidden weapon can directly penetrate it. The powerful burst of wrist power made the power of the hidden weapon very terrifying. It can accurately hit the target at a distance of 50 meters, and the flying speed of the hidden weapon is also amazing. This level is no longer genin, even jonin can't do it. If you continue to hang hidden weapon throwing on the skill bar, Shiyu believes that it will become stronger. But Shiyu traded it back for chakra refining. I have to go to school again tomorrow. At night, Shiyu was very helpless lying on the bed. He went to school before to learn more, but now Shiyu feels that he is restraining himself when he goes to school. If you have that time, you might as well refresh your skill status. Make progress faster. Episode 19. A different Moonlight Shiyu. The amount of chakra has almost doubled. When Shiyu got up to wash in the morning, he looked at himself in the mirror. Since chakra is full, the mental state is very good. Shiyu looked very energetic, and at the same time felt the amount of chakra in his body. Sure enough, compared with before, the amount has doubled now. If the genius Sasuke is used as the unit of measurement, then Shiyu's chakra has reached 16 or 17 times that of Sasuke. At the same time, compared with Naruto, it only caught up to 1/3 of Naruto's volume. Compared to before, the increase in the amount of chakra has slowed down today. This is also normal, just like cultivating internal strength, the further you go, the slower it will be. It seems that after returning from school today, I have to spend time updating the status of the chakra refining technique. Otherwise, regardless of this, the amount of chakra enhanced by the chakra refining technique is too small. In fact, a chakra that doubles in one day is not slow at all, but Shiyu was still not satisfied. Greed is also the driving force behind human struggle. After tidying up, Shiyu opened the door and walked towards the ninja school. When he came to the school gate, he immediately attracted attention. The current Shiyu's dress is completely different from before, and the dress can be regarded as extremely gorgeous. Immediately attracted the attention of a large group of girls. This is, classmate Shiyu, you are so handsome today. What are you talking about? The former Shiyu classmate is also very handsome. But in the past, Shiyu's clothes were too ordinary, and he didn't show his handsome face at all. Yes. A large group of girls watched Shiyu enter the school. This striking feeling, Shiyu also felt differently. When I entered the school, I met acquaintances soon. The other party froze for a moment and looked at Shiyu in surprise. You guy, what happened today? Why does it feel like a different person? Is there? No? Shikamaru looked at Shiyu with a look of surprise. The usual Shiyu is not like this. Although Shiyu is handsome, he admits, but the expression of helplessness between Shiyu's eyebrows could not be concealed before. But today, Shiyu exudes a sense of self-confidence all over his body. At the same time, Shiyu's aura also changed, as if giving off a faint sense of oppression. Is this an illusion? His own strength is much stronger than Shiyu, how could he make himself feel oppressed? I also feel that today's Shiyu seems to be different. Choji, who was eating potato chips beside him, said seriously. Shiyu rolled his eyes. Go ahead and eat yours. Choji. Oh. Good. You either? I quit, thank you. Come to the classroom. The classmates in the same class, maybe even more different. One after another, looked at Shiyu. Even Sasuke couldn't help but look at Shiyu more. This guy changed his clothes, why does he feel like a different person? Wow. Shiyu-sans, this change seems to be cooler than Sasuke-kun today. Such charming eyes, if I can't do it, I'm falling. As Shiyu's old deskmate, Ino's mouth has not closed since the first time he saw Shiyu today. Always maintained the state of being able to swallow eggs. Shiyu sat down calmly, turned his head and glanced at Ino. What's the matter? You don't know me anymore? Ino usually has a good relationship with Shiyu, and he often secretly looks at himself. But today Ino blushed when Shiyu stared at him. She is not Hinata's ultimate shy personality, but today she seems a little out of control. I didn't. No? Shiyu continued to approach, and a face was even closer to Ino. Today's perfume smells different. Shiyu said lightly, and then looked at Ino, who was so nervous that his heart beat faster. He is very satisfied with the effect. Yes, is there? As long as Shiyu-kun likes it. I really like it. Really, really? Both Shikamaru and Choji looked at Shiyu and Ino, who were sitting in front of them. Choji, Shikamaru, I feel like Ino can't talk anymore? Stuttering. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. No way, today's Shiyu is too lethal. Lethality? What lethality? Ah. You don't need to know, you probably will never understand this trouble. While Ino was stuttering and whispering to Shiyu. Naruto, pretending to be cool with his mouth cocked, walked past Shiyu, and then backed away. Grabbed Shiyu's shoulders so that Shiyu's face is facing him. Ino was speechless. He and Shiyu-kun were talking. What is Naruto going to do? Shiyu. Have you had plastic surgery? Shiyu looked at Naruto calmly. What do you think? Shiyu usually has a good relationship with Naruto, and Naruto looked at Shiyu in surprise. Why does it feel like you are more handsome than before, damn it? It's okay to have Sasuke, but you seem to be more handsome than Sasuke, so isn't my little Sakura. Looking at the little Sakura who is also peeking at Shiyu, Naruto feels that there is one more rival in love now. Sasuke looked at Naruto unhappily. What is a showbag? How dare this guy use such words to describe himself? At this moment, Iruka walked in, waving at Naruto. Go back to your place and start class. As he spoke, he also noticed Shiyu, and Iruka was also surprised by Shiyu's change. But it didn't go too far like Naruto and the others. He just glanced at Shiyu differently. Student Shiyu, you feel very different today. Shiyu smiled. The real change, the teacher will know later. Is it? It looks very confident. That's right. That's what ninjas want to do. If you don't even believe in yourself, how can you perform the task well? Okay, let's start class. The day's class is over soon. The class time was a kind of enjoyment for Shiyu before, but now it is a kind of torment. There is no way to refresh the skill status, only to stare at the passive skill bar and run the skill over and over again. But the only interesting thing is to tease Ino, who is at the same table. Unlike before, now Ino remains cooked from beginning to end, and it is very interesting that the top of his head is almost steaming. After finally getting out of class, Shiyu greeted Ino, Shikamaru, and others, and ran away in a hurry. Going home to update the skill status is the most important thing for Shiyu now. But Shiyu came home with 1 foot ahead, and there was a knock on the door with his back foot. Who? Shiyu, are you home? It's me. Uncle is here to see you. Uncle Masano? Episode 20, The Angel Investor, Uncle Masano. Shiyu was just about to take out the scroll of illusion, after learning it through skill analysis. See if you can enhance your mental power through illusion, thereby increasing the efficiency of his chakra refining technique again. Hearing the voice outside the door, Shiyu hurriedly opened the door. Moonlight Masano, a nearly 40-year-old chunin. The strength is average, but the relationship with his father seems to be very good, and he has been taking care of himself all these years. Shiyu is very grateful to Masano. Uncle Masano, come in. I'll get you some tea. Speaking of which, Shiyu began to get busy, and Masano was no stranger to Shiyu's house, and would come here 2 or 3 times a week. Go ahead. Add more tea. Okay. Shiyu responded quickly. Soon the steaming hot tea was brought over by Shiyu. As a ninja, Masano has reached middle age, but his body is still very strong. It can also be seen from the thick arms that he is a powerful ninja. Shiyu, you are about to graduate, you have to work hard during this time. Hearing this, Shiyu nodded. Thank you, Uncle Masano, for your concern. Masano put his big hand out on Shiyu's head, and patted it lightly. You seem to be a little different, but this is good, don't frown like before all day long. You are so young, what do you have to worry about? Shiyu also nodded in response, yes. Okay. Seeing you like this now, I feel relieved. As he spoke, he took out a small box, and inside the box was a small wallet, which contained Shiyu's living expenses. Uncle Masano, the money left by my parents is actually enough for me to use. Then how can it be done? Your parents have saved such a small amount of money all their lives. You still need to use it when you get married in the future. What if you spend it all now? Masano smiled as he said, don't worry. Although our Moonlight clan is not a big family, we can still support a little guy like you. Thanks. Thanks again, Shiyu. Seeing this, Masano has long been used to it, and it is precisely because of Shiyu's politeness that Masano likes Shiyu very much. At the same time, expectations are high. Okay. I'm leaving. Saying that, Masano got up. When he came to the door, Masano suddenly turned his head. Correct. When I came back yesterday, Hayate said that you wanted to find me. What kind of ninjutsu scroll? Shiyu was stunned for a moment, and then he was ready to say that he didn't need it anymore. Brother Haifeng has found the illusion scroll for himself. But Masano suddenly took out a ninjutsu scroll from his arms. Uncle, I don't know much ninjutsu, and I'm not a ninjutsu type ninja. However, I have a collection of fire-style ninjutsu scrolls here. You can try it. Uncle doesn't know if you can learn it. Anyway, try it. After speaking, Masano patted Shiyu on the shoulder and left directly. Look at the fire-style ninjutsu scroll in your hands. Shiyu smiled. This Uncle Masano has nothing to say about his kindness. For a chunin, ninjutsu scrolls are not so easy to get. Giving such a precious thing to yourself without blinking an eye? If it is the original Shiyu, it is impossible to master this fire style at all. Because his chakra attribute should only be water attribute without accident. So I couldn't learn fire style at all, but now it's different. Can you analyze this scroll? Daxian, analyzing. Shiyu opened the scroll, put it on the table, and stared at it carefully. Analyzing, 1%, 1.5%, Does each increase only increase by 0.5? This is even slower than when I mastered the penetration before. But last time, Haifeng demonstrated and explained in person. At the same time, whenever Shiyu had doubts, Haifeng repeated it over and over again. But right now, it's just a scroll, so it's not impossible to slow down the progress of analysis. As long as the analysis can be completed, in order to speed up the progress of the analysis, Shiyu also began to try to condense the chakra in the body according to the method on the scroll, and at the same time began to try to seal. Doing so does speed up the parsing a lot. However, the resolution is increased by 0.5 each time. Sitting there from noon to wee hours. Shiyu watched the last hundredth on the parsing progress bar. It's only a step away, but the last step is often the most difficult. It has been an hour, and the resolution still shows no sign of increasing. Shiyu felt sleepy already. Analysis completed. Congratulations to host for acquiring new skills. Fire style, fire dragon technique. Nature transformation fire. Mastered ninjutsu and got nature transformation by the way? This was unexpected. So I'm now a dual attribute ninja. Generally, only Jonin can possess the second chakra attribute. And he is just a kid who didn't graduate from ninja school. Fire dragon technique? The power of this fire style is not bad. Shiyu is very satisfied. Uncle Masano, thank you for your ninjutsu scroll, I will definitely repay you 1,000 times in the future. A ninjutsu scroll brought Shiyu more than just a ninjutsu, a chakra attribute. The most important thing is that with only the scroll of ninjutsu, he can get himself a ninjutsu, a chakra attribute, and then Shiyu wants to obtain other attributes. It's very simple. Now I have both fire and water chakra attributes. Unfortunately, it's not water or soil. The combination of water and soil chakra can form wood style. It seems that fire and water can be combined into boil style. Shiyu suddenly had some ideas when he thought of this. Relying on active skills, I don't know if the two chakra can be integrated into a new blood succession limit. Boil style. The power it has is quite good. The strange power that erupts after chakra boils, and Shiyu can be stuck in a state of unlimited physical strength, then I am afraid that he will directly become the king of violent destruction. From the beginning of the village to the end of the village. But there is no scroll, relying on my own talent to fuse two kinds of chakra. Don't think about it, it's impossible, but if the active skill can be analyzed, it will be different. Even at a slower pace, Shiyu is perfectly acceptable. Daxian, you can try it, even the skills have come out to talk about it, so let's try it. Shiyu felt the chakra in this body, the result of performing two nature transformations at the same time before, and Shiyu still clearly remembered that feeling. Now I have to take another risk, if I am not careful, I will die. Anyway, I've already died once. If you don't have the courage, you won't be able to become a powerful ninja, Shiyu gritted his teeth. Damn. Fight.